Hello, everybody, and welcome to the second episode of RantER. A couple of things before I wanted to get into the video, so let's get down with it here as soon as we can. First of all, I do apologize for no videos over the past couple of days. I actually meant to record one over the weekend, but I kinda came down with COVID, and yeah, it definitely sucks. So I haven't been able to do anything over the weekend, so I do apologize for that. I am feeling a lot better, so I wanted to record an episode here and now so that I could get it out for you guys as soon as possible. So that's what we're going to be here for. And second of all, for those guys who are here before I ended up changing the name of the series, you guys would know that it used to be called RantER. I kind of meant it to be a random eternal return kind of thing, but over on my stream, we had a little bit of a moment here where a viewer of mine actually gave me the idea to change the name from RantER into something called RantER, where it'd be more like me ranting, as shown here.
RantER? Oh, I actually kind of like that. Yeah, I could definitely change it.
I like the idea, so I'm gonna honestly go with it. So from now on, we're gonna change the series here to RantER. I change, the thumbnails, I change the titles and everything. Of course, the audio for the first two videos are gonna be as is, so I can't really do anything about that. But starting from now on, we'll call the series RantER. And those are the two things that I really wanted to get for you guys. So let's just start with the video. Hello and welcome to episode 2 of RantER. First of all, I would like to give a special shout out to Adri Toma over on Twitter for giving me this video topic. Thank you very much. And let's immediately get into the topic, which is going to be KR versus international regions. Now, if you have been playing Eternal Return for quite a while, you will know this is a topic that is pretty heavily discussed amongst a lot of people, especially those in the higher elo, and there is a big reason as to why. A lot of people will always kind of take a look at the meta between the two and always ask, especially me as well, why do I think the meta is different? Why is it so different to the point where, different characters are being played, some of the stuff being played on international regions that are really, really good just aren't getting nerfed by Nimble Neuron? And I may have a couple reasons as to why, but first, I'm gonna refer back to a video made in the Korean region a long, long time ago. This was back in 2021 to prepare for an esports tournament they actually had over on the Korean region. And we had a couple of Korean casters actually bring up this topic in the video, although it wasn't as specific. I think they covered a couple of really cool stuff in it as well. It's a quick, about 3-minute video, but one of the questions asked to the casters in a 20-second kind of answer the question kind of format was, what is the difference, in his opinion, between the international region and the Korean region? His answer was that the Korean region understands the quote-unquote meta a lot faster. So when that comes down to it, I guess he's talking about the patch notes. People are able to understand what the specific number differences mean, buffs, nerfs, changes to skills. They're able to interpret that a lot faster, and they can pave their meta depending on what is considered quote-unquote good and what is considered bad, just looking at the numbers alone, and Korean players will adjust according to that. However, when it comes to the international players, they pave the meta depending on the characters they like to play. Now, for example, if I'm gonna kind of name some random names here in the North American region, of course we have Frankie Doodle, who likes to play Sylvia a lot. We have Superior, who plays Sua, and we have a lot more people in the North American region alone that plays their main characters no matter how good they are, no matter how bad they are. They just play that character because they love to play it. And that's pretty consistent, I would have to say, in a lot of people in the international regions as well, although of course that's not to say everybody, because there are some people in the international region that also do kind of change up the characters that they play according to what's definitely good, but it genuinely is a good way to kind of sum up the way that a lot of international players play their characters. Now, I personally definitely agree with this to a majority of an extent. I will say that when EBS talks about how KR understands the meta fast and they're able to kind of use that to their advantage. I have a little bit of issues with it because we've had some cases in the past that I'll bring up in just a moment here where that definitely wasn't true in my personal opinion. But to a certain degree, we can see that Korean players tend to transition the characters that they play a lot more smoother than international region players will do. And for example, here it's going to be one of our very famous Korean players, One Circle. For the past couple of seasons, we've seen him play quite a interesting roster of characters that you usually don't see. Nathapon, Carla, Celine, that was his go-to set of characters that he played quite a lot during his seasons, maybe like 5 and 6 kind of days, but nowadays he's changed it up a little bit. He plays a couple of the characters, of course, that he still loves to play, and Celine is always going to be a fallback character that he can go towards. Nathapon is always going to be a character that he can fall back towards as well, but he's added a couple of more characters to his roster, and that's because characters like Carla, for example, just have not been performing as well thanks to the changes that she has received in the recent nerfs. Now, is that a good thing? Sure, I guess. I mean, Carla has been pretty good, especially in the Korean region, thanks to a lot of people playing her. But at the same time, in international regions, we haven't really seen Carla be a problem. So that's another thing that I can talk about in a future part of this video, where the Korean meta definitely affects what the international region meta is going to feel, even if that's not what we end up thinking is really good or really bad for the meta. So overall, just kind of summarizing that video alone, I genuinely think the overarching idea around what EBS talks about is genuinely a good way to go. Of course, KR understanding the meta fast, thanks to them being able to understand what the buffs and nerfs really do to a character and then adjusting according to that. And the international players just kind of liking a certain character and then just putting a lot of effort into making that character their go-to character pick for just about everything. Another thing that I will mention about that though is the fact that it's a little bit easier for Korean players to do that thanks to ping. I will talk about it in the next section where I talk about stats a little bit there. So let's just immediately move on to the next section of stats. So, talking about stats in Eternal Return when it comes to the international scene versus the Korean scene, I think one of the biggest ways that we can kind of show the difference in statistics when it comes to these two different regions is Shoichi. Shoichi is like by far, in my opinion, one of the best ways to kind of show that statistics is going to be massively different from the Korean side of things and the international side of things at almost any point in the game's existence. Yeah, you know what? I'll be honest. Let's just say it like that. There are times when Shoichi has been really good, and a lot of people like playing him. International regions, not as much. There are some people who really love playing Shuichi. That is hands down fact. We have players like ECU, and we have players like Fido. And even nowadays as well, we have people like Fruitcake who really loves playing Shuichi. But take a look at the stats on the Korean side of things. There is a ton of people who love playing Shuichi, and that has been consistent whether Shuichi has been amazing or has been terrible. One of the things that I will mention here too is that this is mainly because of ping diff. Another character very important relying on ping is going to be Celine. There are some amazing Celine players internationally for what they are worth because we have differences in ping that makes it very difficult to play a character like Celine, who has to be very pinpoint and accurate in regards to the timings that you do things, in regards to where your skills needs to be at that exact moment in time. So, of course, when it comes to things like that, KR is going to be a little bit more in favor, which is the reason why Shoichi has been such a popular pick over on the KR side of things, where they really want to be showing their mechanical prowess of any character. They want to pull off some crazy things with some characters, and they have the utility to do that, including ping. That is an advantage that they just inherently have thanks to the servers that they have, and of course Korean internet just being good. Another thing about statistics that I will mention as well is the simple fact that there is a lot more players in Korea for Eternal Return than I would have to say a decent chunk of the international regions just all combined. Which means Nimble Neuron, who mostly looks at statistics, I think that's been changing a little bit now. I can talk about that in another video as well. But Korea impact statistics that Nimble Neuron looks at to balance things a lot more than the international regions do. And this was the part that I was mentioning the last part as well, where, for example, a meta that in my opinion just did not catch on to Korea that I think should have been nerfed a lot earlier than it did is Crit Kiara. Crit Kiara completely dominated the international region for almost an entire season and a half, if I remember correctly. And then now, finally, Korean players are like, oh, this is actually good. Until then, they were continuing to play that skill amp tank version of Kiara, and then they slowly but surely started moving into the Crit Kiara region, and it's like, wow, this is absolutely amazing. Crit Kiara stats just off the charts all of a sudden as soon as Korean players started playing it, and boom, that's where immediately we started seeing nerfs to Crit Kiara. So it's a little bit of a hard pill to swallow, I think, for international region players, but something that we do have to understand is that unfortunately, the Korean stats are going to be an overwhelming force in regards to what actually gets nerfed and also what becomes buffed in regards to the overarching thing for Eternal Return. And that's another thing that really kind of impacts the Korean versus international meta is that the Korean ones are a lot more fluid thanks to their metas being a lot more impactful in the balancing compared to the international regions where we just kind of have to pick up scraps, although I don't like the way that sounds. So yeah, that's in regards to stats, that's just in my opinion how it is. So now that we've covered the stats, let's talk a little bit in regards to why some characters might be played a little bit more and why some characters might be more meta in one specific region compared to the other. So in the Korean region, I think this has been relatively consistent for a while now. There is a very, very big meta that has been really consistent over on the Korean side of things for a very long time now, and it is just ratting until the end. I think Nero will definitely have a thought about this as well. He definitely has an opinion on this, but on the Korean side of things, a lot of characters, especially in the past, I don't know about nowadays because now the game has gotten a little bit more diverse that there's a lot more characters added into the game. There's a lot more viability and especially with all the damage number changes nowadays, it's a little bit difficult to tell. But in the past, there was a big and very long streak where Koreans were much more focused on staying alive, ratting all the way until the end, and just picking up scraps when it comes to LP. That's why characters like Shukai was super, super popular over in the KR region. Characters like Magnus was really popular back then. Jackie was also really popular back then as well. Also on the topic of Magnus, I'm sorry, YouTube, if this isn't allowed. This was what the strat itself was called, so I can't really say anything else. Gay Magnus came from the Korean region. The all just tank, HP regeneration, full on Magnus just walking around, never dying. That all originated from the Korean meta. And that's not to say that there aren't any aggressive KR players, there definitely is a good amount. It's just in the past there were definitely a lot of people who just ratted, so yeah, that's pretty much what the KR meta was like back then, but that is almost completely different than the international region. Everybody, especially in high elo, is bloodthirsty as heck in international regions. They will go out of their way to try to get kills and just rack up as many LP as possible. And that in a way also kind of has to do with like the competitive nature with the international regions where we always see the same people in these lobbies over and over again. So we definitely get like the competitive urge to be able to one up the other person or just kind of keep a track record of who kills who. Galazor and Esther. But overall, the reason as to why some characters might be meta more so in one region and the other is the fact that the big gameplay styles that really dominate how that region is played, is very different. And this is the reason why I talked about this in my stream a long time ago as well. Zahir has been a very discussed character nowadays with all these buffs and nerfs and buffs and nerfs and changes to gameplay, all these buffs, and then all of a sudden there's a nerf that reverts a buff. It's because in the international regions, we don't see Zahir gameplay as much. There's not that many people who play Zahir because when it comes to a bloodthirsty meta where people are just constantly running you down, outranging you, poking down to all eternity, Zahir is not going to get that much success out in those kind of stages. But if you're playing in a stage where a lot of characters have to walk into you, but they give you enough space to work with, then Zahir becomes a lot better. The tank meta stay alive until the end. Then Zahir becomes a lot more better. So it's a lot of these small things that really make certain characters good in one specific region and maybe not so good in the international region. So that's, I think, one of the biggest things that I want to let people know about when it comes to the KR versus international topic is that, my character doesn't feel so good. Why are they not getting buffed? Well, maybe it's because over in the Korean region, now I'm not saying this is like the reason why, there's probably some other factors into it, but maybe over on the Korean side of things, that character has been good. I know I'm going to go back to Zahir again, but there was a lot of talk about Zahir being really bad at some points in the international region, but in the Korean side of things, he was doing extremely, extremely well, which is the reason why he was getting his gameplay changes, why he was getting nerfed a lot of times as well. Sometimes we can definitely blame Korea on this one, guys. International players rejoice. We can blame the Koreans for this. Sometimes the characters we enjoy over onto international regions that might not be so meta, maybe because of the Koreans just being able to find some success with them over on their side of things, which is why they just continuously get nerfed, even if on our end they're not seeing as much success. Now, let's start talking a little bit more about the number of games that are played. So I talked about statistics earlier where we have a lot more of a heavier population density over on the Koreans, more so than the international regions combined. And another thing that of course factors into stats, I probably should have added this earlier, but I just kind of thought up of it, so I'll add it here now, is the total number of games in general that gets played. It's no question that KR in general gets way more games, especially ranked, than the international regions do combined. We always have those jokes in the international regions where it takes us forever to get queues, and it's been getting better and better nowadays, but of course it's not even close to the number of games that Koreans get in general every single time they play to begin with. So that is another factor that will definitely kind of make a difference in regards to the meta as well, because the statistics factor again. We have things that are going to matter more when it comes to the Koreans because their meta will be a lot more valued when it comes to what needs to be balanced, what needs to be nerfed over the course of time. So the total number of games is another thing, in my opinion, that will definitely play a big role between the two different metas. And that's also another way where people can kind of, especially over on the Korean side of things, develop their meta a lot more. I mentioned earlier as well, Ibisa talked about how the Koreans are really good at being able to kind of figure out what the meta is going to be, but at the same time, they get a lot more games. So in a shorter amount of times, they get more games, which means more time in game to figure out what actually works or not. So I guess that's another way you could look at it. Overall, which one do I prefer, the international regions or the Korean one? As someone who has casted both of the regions for quite a long time now, I'm not gonna go ahead and say that there is one that I like. I think both are really good, both have their good merits. It just depends, of course, again, the international region's gonna have to kind of swallow a pill on that one and just say our meta is not as valued as the Korean ones. That's just raw facts. Still, the difference between the KR meta as well as the international meta, definitely a big topic that will always continue on. Of course, my opinions were discussed here. There is a lot more different opinions where everybody else comes from, mostly negative. I'm a little bit more optimistic about this one because I look at both side of things. But what do you guys think? What is the difference between the KR meta as well as the international meta? Now, this is again a topic that I've been talking about on stream for a very long time now, especially after big patches and things like that, because people will come ask, not after me, but people will come ask me, why did my character not get buffed? Why is this not getting nerfed? Why is this not getting buffed? And sometimes I really just have to kind of lay down the facts, be like, KR isn't doing this. I'm sorry. It's just how it is sometimes. I just kind of lay it out flat. But I also want to hear what you guys think on this topic as well. What do you guys think is the main difference between the KR region as well as the international region? Let me know down in the comments below. And while you're on that as well, let me know some video topics that you guys want me to talk about in the future as well. Always down to have more interesting ideas in regards to video topics. Always down to interact with you guys, whether it's on YouTube comments or at my Twitch stream as well.
Twitch.tv/UV
And you know what? Just let me know anything that you guys want me to know. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys back here for RantER episode number 3.